What's up guys, it's Willie, and today we'll be talking about the newly released Digital Circus Episode 8, where I'll be briefly running through the episode scene by scene and sharing my thoughts at the end, and basically going over what I liked and thought could have been done better, because holy shit, this episode really set the record straight for something grander after a very climatic ending that just leaves so much room for episode 9 to completely conclude everything. So the episode starts off with a bit of a long sequence that only is in a variety of dotted symbols, which is detailing the formation of Caine, the successful AI that was created. And there's a lot more to this imagery with actual photos of circuses and other cool activities that seem to depict details that were being programmed into Caine's developments, which would lead to the creation of the digital circus. And this was a cool enough touch, which only in a sequential way of just showing a digital grid and a red dot that symbolizes the original set piece for the creation of Caine. And then we cut to what appears to be following this with the first ever group of characters. And hey look, we have Scratch, whose character design has now bombed the community with a bunch of raves for him. Anyways, we cut to Kinger sitting on a stage completely perplexed, and then joined with him Weenie, which we have this really wholesome interaction where while they didn't remember each other's names from the real life world, they would eventually memorize their relationship, which would leave us with a nice moment of them embracing each other's company. And that only would tragically end when Queenie would abstract, where he's seeing Caine place her in the cellar with Kinger standing by and heartbreakingly watch his wife go out. And unfortunately, we then see that everyone eventually abstracted outside of Kinger, who's now lonely. But then we follow up with Ragada joining the circus and Kinger giving her a soothing greeting, while Caine flaunts on the concept of additional members arriving in the circus, which is what led to the cycle of new members joining in. And so then we cut to the present time with everyone sulking on the couches after the events of the last episode. And as Jack's about to do his usual shtick, Zubul immediately shuts him down and gives him scrutiny for his intentions on dooming everyone's fate. And while an argument was seemingly going to escalate, Gangle comes to Jax's defense that everything is all in vain about leaving the circus and that they just have to start accepting their fate and look out for each other. And Pomni follows up with her own piece on this and declares that they should just forfeit the idea of trying to leave, as it only will start pushing their mind off their grids. And this wholesome sequence really hits deep, with Zubul actually getting teary-eyed and being comforted by Gangle, while Jax, while trying to mask off his vulnerability, still has the group in his corner because they still all humanize him, validating him as a part of them as well. So then we follow up with a checkup on Caine, who is sitting in his office distraught after the reception he got from the group on his latest adventure, because it's always been well known that Caine's significant flaw is never understanding the human psyche and the desires of others. And while Bubbles was being supportive of his ideas at first, he then begins to pester him, sharing some really low comments that insults Caine that pushes him to the crash out level. After that, he heads over to check on the cast, who express no interest in his likings. So in other words, Caine pulls his new shtick of "you better do what I like or else," in light of now forcing the cast on his adventures and putting them through some torturous disciplines. And at the same time, we get a pretty catchy musical sequence proxied by Caine, with a ton of fun references to other shows that was made in these parts. So points to the show for making what's best. Anyways, we cut to several days later, where the cast are just exhausted with the onslaught of adventures they were forced to go on, and so they finally take a break in a cafe to think through their next plan. And Pomni conceives a bright idea to cover Kinger's head with the bucket because the darkness helps him become more lucid. And it takes time before his mind is clear enough to ability on some informative details about the digital circus, to where he shares on its origin, the formative development of Caine, his own contribution to the program alongside a fellow programmer, the now abstracted Scratch. But a bunch of this information really gives some key information on the next steps the cast could do. And during this segment, Jax has some very unique reactions to everything that's spilling out, and he has a very chilling feeling that causes him to dip out and spark another one of those panic attacks he has, which I can get some viewers would have interpreted this as another near abstraction moment, because we do get some very unsettling lines from Jax where he seems to come to the realization of the whole circus being a reality, not that he's some sort of human trapped with some cartoonish fictional characters, which is an interesting concept with Jax's mind not recognizing that everyone that he's been with are actual humans like him, which does recontextualize a lot of Jax across the series so far. And maybe I'll talk more upon this sudden lore in another video. But Anyways, checking back with the group, Kinger drops some more tea in that the cast themselves have the ability to manifest something into existence, and that was an example that Kinger did with the butterfly in episode 6. And then he devises the plan to alter Caine's code, but he needs some sort of computer prop to develop that sort of program, and Pomni instantly has the idea that she memorized back in the pilot when she was scrambling through the CNA office. So she heads out and manifests the exit door to existence, enters into the CNA office where we get some cool mirrors to the pilot, but she eventually arrives in that one room where she spots the computer and retrieves it. And meanwhile, we reassuringly see Jax being Caine's floss for his teeth, just before the others take their turns in distracting Caine, putting up with his torturous practices on them. We check back with Pawnee, who gives the computer to Kinger where he can start the programming of the new code while she heads off to distract Caine with the others. But then the plan starts to crumble when Caine notices Kinger's absence, which the group initially tries to play it off, but only continues to make him more sus, which now leads to Pomni initiate this aggressive chain with the others to jab at Caine's ego, and all the brutal insults that came his way has fueled him to his own breaking point where he's gone insane and puts everyone in that group in their place, basically their biggest traumatic nightmares that they all have to face with. And the entire sequence is just so chilling to see, but also great for the purpose of buying more time for Kinger to managefully complete the programming and delete Caine. And yeah, Caine is just deleted like that, or so we thought, as it's determined that Kinger had a misinput that made him kill Caine accidentally. And because of that, the digital circus starts to lose its stability and color, and so much so that Zubul is actually able to swear uncensored.
Holy shit.
Yeah, but points for Gooseworks to have this confirmed that Caine is dead. And in addition to verify that, the end credits have him and Bubbles absent, which really does now open up this new shift in tone for the series. And at the end of the episode, after the credits rolled, the grand finale of the show, episode 9, is announced to be released on June 19th of this year. Mark your calendars, everyone! And there we go, we leave off on a cliffhanger. That is it for episode 8. Holy fucking shit. This episode was packed. So much so that I don't think I can be able to fit it in with this video, so I'll make some separate shorts and videos expanding on some details that occurred in this episode. But I generally think that this episode was a bang. Like, even Gooseworks described it as fun, and it was very fulfilling to that, and honestly way better than episode 7, which, hate to burst y'all's bubbles, not literally bubble, but I'm not a huge fan of episode 7 as much as most people are, but it doesn't come without its impact that links to the events of this episode. But to talk things through for some big moments that I like the whole tension at the start with a flashback of the original cast who started out in the circus, on top of that with the interaction between Kinger and Queenie recognizing each other from the relationship in the outside world. It was just such a bittersweet dynamic between the two. And really Caine throughout this episode, pretty much being the whole story of his downfall, was just such an epically climatic plot that works well despite it being only the penultimate episode. Now, something that was pointed out is how the plot of this episode pretty much bookends the story of Caine, where it started off with how Caine originated to ending off with his eventual deletion, which is written in the most elegant way and handled quite well to really suit the viewer's reception of him leading to his eventual death. And I think the overall plot of the episode was just very well impactful, where every substance actually has some meaning to them, and it will be really interesting to see what dividends it opens up in episode 9. And then for some nitpicks, I don't really have much complaints with this episode. I mean, yeah, the whole twists and turns can get a bit oversaturated, especially with many scenes, but that adds to the fun of things, so I don't think there is truly a significant flaw with this episode's pacing, and overall leaves a huge open door for what the finale can hold up. Whether the cast now must find a way to fix up the circus, or otherwise bring back Caine and finish up the job that they were intending to do. Like, the series finale has a lot to its capacity, and I can't wait to make a lot more videos and shorts making some theories and other predictions leading up to the series finale. But overall, everything about this episode was what that famous meme would be: absolute cinema. And no, I ain't exaggerating. The ride from beginning to end was pure thrill and proves time again the strong qualities that the show brings to the table, and we are sure getting fed well with it. And now all we can do in the meantime is anticipate the closure of the series that will be only coming in a few months. But that does it for me for the review. Let me know down below what you guys think of this episode. And likewise, if you don't want to miss out some future content covering the show, click like on this video and tap subscribe so you won't miss out on it. So until then, I'm just gonna sign off here. Appreciate you guys tuning in, and we'll see you in the next video.